A few years ago, I was talking with someone, a churchgoer, who was convinced that, in his own words, God had divorced Israel, and that this happened sometime back in AD 70 at the destruction of Jerusalem. Well, since then, I have heard this over and over, in different ways maybe, but always the same idea. God has moved away from Israel. God has removed himself from Israel. God has turned his back on Israel, completely forsaken Israel. And proponents of this line of thinking usually state that God did this to make way, to make room for, to now focus all of his attention on the New Testament church. So let's look at this, because I believe there is a serious problem with this line of thinking. I mean, first off, it shows a real lack, I think, of biblical knowledge and understanding of God. I mean, my mind instantly goes right to when God promises, I will never leave you or forsake you. And the question has to be asked, who did he make this promise to first? The Jews, Israel, back in Deuteronomy 31, verse 6. In fact, the full verse says this: Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Now, some would argue the context angle, and I am usually the first to agree. Yes, there is a time, a place, and people into which God spoke these words. This verse is, in fact, a command for strength and courage given by Moses to the Israelites as they prepared to enter the promised land. Facing imminent war and the transition of leadership from Moses to Joshua, the people are urged not to fear, as God promises his presence and support in victory. To be honest, there is context and contextual issues behind everything recorded in the Bible. Nothing happened or was spoken in a vacuum. But the truth is, a promise made by God is a promise that will endure. I believe this wholeheartedly. Again, we are reminded of this very same promise in Hebrews 13:5. A different context, perhaps, but both times the same promise, a promise that declares the Lord's faithfulness. So God divorcing himself from Israel, well, it just doesn't fit the picture, because either God's promises are good and true, and he means what he says, or he's a liar. And as believers, we know, at least we should know, God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. Numbers 23:19. Then there's Romans 11:25 to 29 to consider, which speaks directly into the God and Israel in New Testament times debate. In verse 25 it says this: I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers and sisters, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. Verse 26, and in this way all Israel, future tense, will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godlessness away from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Verse 28, as far as election is concerned, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. Verse 29, for God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. In these verses, the Apostle Paul takes time to explain a divine mystery. A partial hardening has come upon Israel until the full number of Gentiles is complete. And this refers to the end of the church age, when the church is raptured, after which all Israel will be saved. Paul emphasizes that God's gifts and calling are irrevocable, that despite current disobedience and how it may seem now, Israel remains beloved, and God will show mercy to both Jews and Gentiles alike. You know, there are many promises and passages of Scripture that I could go to prove that our God is a promise keeper. But I think it's suffice to say that when it comes to the promises of God, I always look at it this way. A promise made by the Lord is a promise kept. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one. Unless, of course, we meet in the clouds first. Maranatha.